Hello my flying friends, hope you're doing well. In this video I'm going to go over how I use Litchi app to actually fly my drone for a recent paid aerial photography mission. I was hired by an engineering company to take photos at exact GPS coordinates they gave me, and also to fly video along a river because they're doing a levee project and they wanted to get some footage of what it looks like before they do the project. So I'm just going to go over what I used in Litchi. That's not a complete tutorial because I haven't gotten into all the depths of how Litchi is used and all that, but I'll tell you what I used and why I like it and whether or not I feel it's safe enough to fly my drone autonomously. I'm also going to talk about how I exported my flight logs into different applications to then see a line trace of where I flew. I'll leave timestamps below so you can jump to whatever section is of interest for you. So let's get started. So this is my think tank camera bag. I bought this when I had my DJI Phantom 3. And so I just kind of moved the partitions around. The Phantom 3 would fit normally in here. But now with this bag being modified, I'm actually able to carry both of my Mavics. I have the original Mavic and the Mavic 2. Got the two original controllers. And then I use the smart controller. This is the original smart controller to fly the Mavic 2. Have the DC chargers for the batteries, so these can plug in your cigarette lighters when you're on remote. Screen shade when I'm using my phone in the controller. I have a 7-inch battery powered monitor with a HDMI input, so I can allow the client to see video of what's on my controller. Couple two-way radios so I can give one to my spotter and then have one around my neck. Rangefinder in case I need to measure some distances. And the batteries are underneath each drone here. Okay, so this is the setup that I did for my mission, where I had my smart controller as the main control of the drone. I went HDMI out into this HDMI monitor right here so the client can see a clean feed. So on this display you see all the telemetry and overlay, but on the monitor I've got an HDMI a clean output. On the controller that came with the drone, I'm able to launch Litchi, and you can see that I have GPS from the drone, and it shows me the same camera position, and I can even fly the drone from this controller, or I can fly it from my smart controller. So one of the things advantage that Litchi has is you can go into the settings and turn on show GPS coordinates. So now when you're flying, it shows you your latitude, longitude coordinates there, and I'll show you on the computer screen how I was able to punch in waypoints ahead of time on the map and then look at this monitor or look at this phone to see my waypoints as I was flying with the smart controller. So I would basically just glance at this to know that I'm getting close to the GPS coordinates that the client wanted me to photograph. So this shows you that you can control the drone with either the smart controller or the secondary controller, so you have two controllers that are linked to the drone. Okay, so now we're in Litchi. You can go to your web browser and type in flylitchi.com and log into your account. So by default, it'll be a blank project. I've already loaded up what I did for my mission, but if you wanted to add points of interest, you just take your mouse and right click on an area. You can move it around, and by default it's like 3 feet altitude, let's say. But it'll say if you wanted to have it be photographing at the tree line top, then you can increase your altitude here to say 100 feet or whatnot. And then the camera gimbal will automatically adjust to whatever altitude you set your point of interest. So I'm just going to delete this one. So what I basically did is I got the GPS coordinates from the client, and I right-clicked close to where I thought it was supposed to be. And then by clicking on this points of interest, you see your latitude and longitude. So I just simply pasted in their coordinates, and it moved my point of interest to exactly their spot. So I can go through, and then they gave me 12 points that they wanted to get photographed. And then to go actually tell the Litchi where you want to fly, you just click somewhere, and it automatically has a point that's added there. You can set your altitude, and then if your gimbal pitch is focus points of interest, right now at 160 feet above the ground, the gimbal is going to be minus 39 degrees down in order to take a picture of point of interest number 1. If you want, you can change your point of interest, and I don't know if you saw it or not, but the little drone triangle here changes according to what point of interest you select. So you could be basically moving this around, and let me zoom in a little bit. So as you move it around, you see how this drone automatically stays fixed to the point of interest. So you can basically go through and pre-plan your mission and have it go from point to point. Well, for this mission, there were so many points, and the distance was basically like 2 miles. I couldn't obviously do this in one flight, so I basically figured out a place to land, or my home position, and fly about 1,500 feet south away from the home position and 1,500 feet north of the home position. I figured that's about a safe distance where I could still have a spotter or have a visual on my drone as I was flying. So then after I finished that leg, then I just would land and then go up to the next section I had planned. So let me go ahead and open up one of them that I did. So we'll open up the video leg. So here is where I took off from. I just put my camera there, knowing that I was going to shoot video, but this just gave me a marker point of where I want to take off from. And then I manually flew the drone to the point 1, and I had Litchi start the application, and it flew by itself to the second point and then the third point. And then after it was done, I just told it on the first point that if you click on this, pulls up the information. I want it to stay for 10 seconds so it kind of stabilizes its flight, and then automatically start recording. So once I hit play on Litchi, it went to the waypoint 1, and paused, and then started recording for me, and then was flying autonomously the route. And once it finished, you can set it to return to home or whatever. Those are taken care of in the settings. The finish action, none, return to home, land, back to 1, or whatever you decide. So there's quite a bit of customization in here. You can change your cruising speed. I thought that 10 miles per hour was a pretty good pace for flying video. You can slow it down if you have less of an area to cover, but since my area was fairly large, I wanted to have it be 10. So I ended up doing 5 legs in order to complete this whole mission. So here's a quick tip. One of the first things you should do when you take off is to fly straight up and to get above the tree line, and notice your altitude. You want to find out what your minimum height is that you can fly around without hitting any obstacles or trees. So I kind of do that first fly up. Drone's definitely above the horizon, and kind of note the altitude. So one of the things that was tricky with this mission, where I took off from, the trees were approximately 150 feet. But across the riverbank, the trees were on a hill, so that meant they were 150-foot trees on a hill. So I ended up flying my mission at an altitude of 200 feet, just to make sure that I was definitely above all the tree lines. So it was a little scary flying with all the ghost branches as well as flying over water. But we got it done. So when I was actually flying the mission with the client, I was noticing that my manual flights of trying to get smooth video shots were not as smooth as I thought that I could make them. Here is some of the actual video that I've sped up 2 times just so you can see how it wasn't as smooth as I would like it to be. So I ended up going back the next day and at no charge to them, reflew the entire video mission all autonomously using Litchi. Here is my flight log comparison of my manual flight versus the automated flight with Litchi. You can see how much smoother it is with the Litchi. Pretty impressive. All right, so the mission is complete. I have the flight logs, and because I have Airdata UAV, I have an account with them. There's a free service, and then since I make a living, I pay for the next level up. It gives me a few more features. So what I can do is I can log into my Airdata, and I have it set up on my smart controller DJI account so that once my flight log missions are done and the controller connects to Wi-Fi, it automatically synchronizes my flight logs up to Airdata. It just takes a little bit. So over here on the left is where I have all the flight logs, and we'll just open up that particular mission that we just saw in Google Earth. So this was the automated flight that Litchi performed. It shows you the start home point, the flight time, what drone I used with it, takeoff battery voltage, and so forth. There's a lot more information you can get from it. Shows you battery percentage level, power, for each battery, sensors along the way, whether or not you had interference, controls, even has weather, at the time of takeoff, what it was, and wind speed and all that. But anyway, so here's how I exported my flight log into Google Earth. So using Airdata UAV, the flight log is uploaded to the cloud, and right below the map you can download a KML file, which will open up in Google Earth, a GPX, that's a little bit more bigger file that I actually sent to the client since they do engineering, and it has more GPS data related to it. You can save it as a CSV, like an Excel sheet, or the original flight log. So I just select KML, it automatically downloads that KML file. Then once I've downloaded the file, if I just say open, it automatically opens in Google Earth. There's the file there. And with Google Earth, you can look how consistent that was on altitude. Pretty impressive. So it automatically brings it into Google Earth. If you go to Get Info, here's how I changed the style, so you can give it a different color, and then width. I just made it 5, and that way you can go through and customize all your flights. So there's the flights that Litchi performed. And that's how I get it into Google Earth.